Being the bigger person isn't always about shutting up. It isn't always about letting things slide under the rug, refusing to entertain or engage with certain people or situations in order to preserve your energy or preserve your peace. I think in today's society, we have a misconception about what being the bigger person actually means and what it actually looks like. Sometimes being the bigger person is just letting things go and not even engaging because it's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy because you know yourself, because you know your value. There are certain situations that call for that. And then there are other situations where being the bigger person is actually speaking up and using your voice and not being afraid to stand up for what you believe in, to stand up for yourself, and to stand up for what is right ultimately. It's funny because I recently had to learn this lesson the hard way. And I find it ironic because it's like second nature for me to stand up for other people, to stand up for what is right when it comes to other people. But this lesson, and I think honestly, reflecting on it now, I think this was a lesson in self-love. I've had to learn that standing up for yourself is just as important as standing up for other people, and that being the bigger person sometimes is sharing your truth and is using your voice. Being the bigger person is usually associated with being silent because silence is powerful. When you are silent, people don't know what you're thinking. People can't take your ideas or your feelings and manipulate them and tear you apart. And that's why I do think that in some circumstances, it's important that we are silent and we don't let the wrong people in. But there are other times when we have to speak up and we have to use the voice that God gave us to shed light on the wrongs that have been done to us and the wrongs that have been done to others. So I'm going to share this story very briefly. I'm not going to go into too much detail because that's the other half of being a bigger person, right? Like, you don't want to dive into all the nitty gritty. Like, I've already healed from most of this. But I do want to share this story because I know that there are people out there who have been wronged, who have been hurt, who are in pain, and you think that if you speak up, you're going to be perceived a certain way. You think that you're going to be judged, or people are going to consider you petty, or you think that being vulnerable is actually the worst thing that you can do. But it's not. Being vulnerable is the most powerful thing that you can do, actually. It's the most compassionate thing that you can do, and it's the best way that you can honor yourself. And not only that, it's a great way to guide and help other people who may be going through something similar. And I think that's the beautiful part of storytelling. So I'm going to share this story with you guys. One, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do believe in sharing your truth and in being vulnerable and being open. And I don't think I've really been doing that because I haven't talked about the thing that's been on my mind or that's been hurting me the most lately. And two, I want this to inspire anyone else who is going through something really hard. Oh my God, I don't want to cry. Girl, I'm in my luteal phase. I'm sorry. And I want to inspire anyone else who has gone through or is going through a really difficult time because you've been betrayed, you've been lied to, you've been hurt, and you're afraid of speaking up because of how you'll be perceived. I want you to know that, like, it's okay to be afraid, but you have to use your voice because nothing will change if you don't. And even if nothing directly changes for you, which I promise you it will, and we'll get to that later in the episode, it will change for other people. So if you can't do it for you, do it for your community, do it for the people that you love and the people that you want to guide and that you want to protect. Okay, let's just get into it. For those of you who know me personally, you know that right now I'm currently unemployed, or I would say I'm more of an entrepreneur right now, where I'm not working a 9 to 5, but I am building my own business. Um, However, me being unemployed was not something that was necessarily planned. So I had worked at this company for about 2 years. And during that time, I gave my blood, sweat, and tears to this company. And I gave a lot of time and I gave a lot of energy, as most of us do, right? You're working a 9 to 5, like all you really have time for is work. And I tend to make this mistake in places that I work, and I think a lot of us can relate to this. I tend to fall in love with the place that I work. And usually it's because of the people that I get to work with. I care deeply about people. Like, I'm a people person, I'm a relationships person, and I was in a role where like that was central to my role, and so it felt super aligned. I got to work with like such amazing people who I still love and respect today. And yeah, like while the job could be really difficult at times and really stressful at times, I really gave my all because of how much I cared about the company and how much I cared about the people that I was serving specifically. So, come like, I guess the end of my time there, which I didn't know at the time was the end of my time there, I had gone through a lot of like ups and downs with like different managers. I had just kind of gotten to a point where I felt like I couldn't really grow anymore under like certain leaders. I felt like there was a lot of corporate politics being played, and I didn't really agree with a lot of those things. And because of that, I spoke up. And I didn't only speak up just to like have something to say, but I would speak up about the things that I didn't agree with because my job was to take care of our employees and to be the voice for our employees. And so for me, getting to be kind of like in, um, I guess, like the CEO suite, if you will, or like kind of work with members of leadership and then also work with our employees, I was kind of like the middleman. Not me telling you guys literally what I used to do, but I was basically like the middleman, right? And I was responsible for bridging the gap between the two groups. And so for me, I was getting intel from employees, I was getting intel from leadership, and I was supposed to take that information and find a way to make this work environment harmonious and cohesive and a place where everyone would enjoy working and a place where everyone's needs were met. So I'm pretty sure most of you can guess what I used to do. So yeah. And what ended up happening basically was because I felt like I wasn't really being heard, despite my job being to express like what was actually going on, I began to feel a bit like unhappy in my role. And so I used my voice. I spoke up about what I felt like was going on. I expressed how I was feeling about the role, about the company, about what was going on with our people. And what ended up happening was there was a change, right? Okay, so it was a positive change at first. I was moved under a different manager, someone that I felt like I could grow under in this new phase of my career. My first manager was great. I just stopped learning under them after a while, so I just needed to transition into, you know, transition under someone else basically. Also, forgive me if I come across a little bit like shaky or jittery in this video. I've only had coffee, and even beyond that, this is a big step for me, so bear with me. During this time, I had built a really good relationship with one of my coworkers, and I was really grateful for that relationship. I felt seen, I felt appreciated, I felt valued working with this person. And this person would ultimately be the one who brought in my new manager that I would officially be under for the rest of my time with the company. So Me and this coworker, we worked hand in hand. We worked really well together. We gelled super well on a personal and a professional level. And I had so much respect for this person. And then all of that kind of changed. I had a new manager come in. This manager and we didn't really gel super well. And the reason for that was I think that this person came in and just kind of took off running. They didn't really ask many questions about what was going on. They didn't really care to hear like my opinion on things or the insights that I had about our people. And so I kind of felt like this person was shutting me out from the role that I had been playing in the organization for the last 2 years. And that really sucked because, on one hand, I went from being this go-to person that people of all different levels come to for advice or insight or support on how to solve, employee issues. And I went from that being that go-to person, being that like highly respected person, to being someone who was just expected to shut up and take orders. And that really was hard for me. One, I am a strong personality. And like, again, I struggle with like not doing what I think is the right thing to do. And two, a lot of the decisions that were being made regarding our employees felt misinformed. It didn't feel right. And it wasn't the way that we would normally handle situations. It wasn't handled with the same like level of care that I was used to, or that to me was the right way to handle those situations. And so I spoke up. I spoke up respectfully. And I specifically remember like trying to build this relationship with this person and saying, look, I want us to work together. I want us to collaborate. I'm here if you need any advice on like how to handle a specific situation or how to work with a specific person, because, I have been here for 2 years and I know our people pretty well. And I just remember being shut down. And it wasn't necessarily with words, but it was with action. Certain conversations I was excluded from. I wasn't involved in certain meetings that I used to be involved in. And my work was essentially minimized to nothing. And this was all in the span of like 3 weeks. On top of that, this person hadn't really gotten a chance to truly get to know me. And so I can see now, looking back on it, that this person had formed an opinion about me based off of the fact that I wasn't afraid to speak up. And so I think the opinion was, well, every time I bring something to this girl, she has something to say. So I was then labeled as someone who was difficult to work with, and I was labeled as someone who was entitled. So yeah, I went from someone whose opinion and whose voice was highly respected and valued, and what I mean by that is I didn't call all the shots, but my voice was considered. My voice was always considered, to being someone whose voice, within the span of 3 weeks, was silenced. And so my reputation and people's perception of me began to change because of this new person who hadn't gotten the chance to know me, and because this person saw me having a voice as a threat to them and almost like a threat to their position. And what really bothered me about that situation is that I wanted to work with that person. I genuinely wanted to learn from that person because that person had so much more experience than me in that field. So I was actually so excited when that person started. So excited. And it turned out to be probably like the worst thing that could have happened. So Once I noticed that I was being excluded from important conversations, I felt like I couldn't do my job effectively, and it made me depressed. It made me really depressed because I felt powerless. I felt like the 2 years of the blood, sweat, and tears and the time and the energy that I gave all went out the window. I felt like I was being shut down. And it really hurt me because the coworker that I had built that strong relationship with, we no longer had that same dynamic. It was almost like a standoffish type of energy. And now, even thinking about it more, it feels like my new manager may have lied or said that I was difficult to work with or entitled, and that changed the perception of me. And I find it so interesting the way that, as a woman especially, you can go from being someone who is, respected, to then being someone who is labeled as difficult or entitled because you don't agree with the status quo. Originally, all of my working relationships were collaborative, and collaboration means hearing each other's voices and giving room and space for people to express themselves. Even if at the end of it all we agree on one person's idea, at least everyone in the room had a voice, and my voice was taken away. So long story short, I left my job, and there was a big occurrence that took place, which is ultimately why I ended up leaving. But it was the silencing of my voice and the tarnishing of my reputation by someone who hadn't even gotten a chance to know me. That was the real reason that I left. The deceit, the betrayal by people that I really respected and trusted to have my back. And I guess I'm sad thinking about it just because it's like, oh man, like, I just wouldn't do that to someone, you know? It's hard. Like, I feel like I'm grieving this in real time again, but it's interesting because it's like, I feel like I'm always someone that's like, say what's on your mind, express yourself. And I mean that. I love outspoken people. I love people that aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, that aren't afraid to challenge me and my opinions. Like, let's talk about it. Like, change my mindset, change my perspective. Like, that is so my vibe. And I basically got screwed over because that was my vibe. Like, I don't know. So now more onto like the point of this video and like what I've learned. So when I left, I ended up like needing to have an exit interview with the coworker that I was originally really close with and who had hired my current manager. And so I had an opportunity to express how I was feeling. I had an opportunity to say all the things that I could have said, like, hey, this person didn't give me a fair chance. Hey, this person lied about me. This person shut me down. This person wasn't kind to me. This person didn't even try to get to know me. This person barely worked with me. It's like I could have said all the things. I could have spilled my guts, and I didn't. Do I regret not saying all the things that I could have said in that moment? No, I don't regret it. And I don't regret it because at the time, I felt like there's no point in me saying anything because it's not going to change anything. And what I mean by change anything is I could have changed that person's mind, but I don't think I cared to change that person's mind because it felt like that their opinion was already made up about me. And also, I felt like my decision to leave, I had prayed on it, and I had really, really thought about it. I consulted with my ancestors on it, girl. And I knew that it was my time to go, because I don't think God would have changed things so drastically and shut me down in that way if he wasn't telling me to leave. There were a lot of people after I left that were like, they didn't directly say it, but felt upset that I didn't set the record straight. And at the time, I didn't really care if they agreed with that decision or not, because I knew that I made the right decision for me. And there was also a part of me that was like, well, I'm being the bigger person here. Because if I go in there and I start talking crap about this ex-manager of mine who labeled me entitled and difficult and said God knows what about me, I would be proving them right. And I would be proving that they got to me if I really said how I was feeling. And this is where we get into like the point of the video about speaking up. It's been about a month, and I have days where like I'm completely fine and I feel just amazing and I feel really proud of myself for walking away. And I still stand by my decision. I don't regret walking away, because I think it was going to happen inevitably. Like, I really do believe that God will close doors to redirect you, and that's what happened. But I still have moments of anger. I still have moments of resentment and frustration. And for a long time, I was projecting that onto the person that betrayed me because I was so hurt. But what I realized in the last few days is that I've been upset with myself for not sharing what happened and how I felt. I felt like I betrayed myself by not allowing myself to be vulnerable openly. I'm someone who, I guess I would consider myself an artist. I like to translate my feelings and my pain into something positive for other people to take. And I didn't do that. This time I just shut it down. I was like, I just want to let this go. I literally like don't want to give this any energy. Like, I'm going to be the bigger person and the truth will be revealed. But I recently watched this video yesterday, and it was talking about the difference between fate and destiny. And when you look in the dictionary, apparently they mean the same thing. Like, if you look up the definition of destiny, it'll say fate. And if you look up the definition of fate, it'll say destiny. But the difference between fate and destiny is that your fate is essentially like circumstances that you can't really control. But your destiny is something that you can take action towards and drive and guide in the direction that you want it to be. And so I realize now there was a part of me that left my reputation and left the truth of what happened up to fate. I was like, well, someone will say something. People will know the truth. When what I really should have done was followed or created my own destiny and spoken up. So this is where I take that tragic experience and turn it into something positive and empowering for you guys. They want you to shut up. Don't. When I silenced myself, I let someone who was trying to hurt me win. And I know it can be really scary to even be vulnerable, to express that you're upset, that you're sad about a situation to someone that has hurt you. But it's such a powerful thing to do. Don't mistake your vulnerability as weakness. Your vulnerability is strength. A lot of times our ego, our pride gets in the way of our vulnerability. Your ego and your pride, right? Like how you're going to be perceived by other people, how people are going to look at you, how they're going to think about you, how they're going to talk about you. You want them to think, yeah, like I walked away and that was that. And I get that. I really get that. And I thought that I was past that. But girl, this healing journey, this growth journey, it's like a literal roller coaster. Your ego and your pride, that will silence you. It will silence your capacity for vulnerability. But your vulnerability is where your power is, because your vulnerability has the potential to heal you. It has the potential to heal other people. Your story, your voice, what happened to you, that shit matters. No matter how small or insignificant you may feel, no matter how like regular that situation may feel like to you, that can really impact another person. You expressing your feelings, expressing what happened to you, the lessons that you've learned from that experience. I will come across people's experiences that I literally cannot relate to. Like, I was watching a video by this creator the other day who was talking about how they like graduated from college and then realized they don't know what to do with their lives. Like, it doesn't really resonate with me. But I was like, wow, I thought that was so empowering. Like that story, this feeling of like not being okay and then not being afraid to post that, to share this vulnerable in between moment of her life, this vulnerable transition phase where she just doesn't know what the future holds and she's feeling lost in life, because who can't relate to that, right? So don't let your vulnerability or your fear of vulnerability get in the way of you creating something fucking amazing. Or let your fear of vulnerability get in the way of your healing. We have to remember that our voices are powerful. Our voices hold weight. Even if your story doesn't impact your direct circle or your immediate community, it can impact so many other people that don't even know you, because people see themselves in your story. People will see themselves in your vulnerability. Even if the experience itself doesn't connect with them, what you are feeling will connect with them. Your truth translates. I think a lot of us are afraid to speak up as well, because we're afraid that people are going to think that we're being petty or trying to get our lick back by being honest. No. If you are an evolved human being and you are self-aware and you understand your emotions, you will be able to tell when you are being petty and you will be able to tell when you are doing something because you've learned something that is beyond you and that other people need to hear. Honoring yourself and honoring your truth is not petty. It's real life. And it's a need. Sitting down in front of this camera, like, I did not think after leaving that job and, deciding to start my own business and put myself out there online that I would ever talk about that experience, because why? Why would I give it any sort of energy? And here I am talking about it. And I'm not talking about it to shame anyone, to make anyone feel bad. I don't know who's going to watch this video. Like, let's be so real. Like, and there's no bad blood either. That's the thing. I'm sharing this because I know this could help someone else. I'm sharing this because talking about this right now and like being super honest about how I'm feeling is making me feel so good inside right now. Like, I feel like a wound is being healed. And it's crazy because I'm like really big on tarot readings. And for the last few weeks, I've been getting this reading that's like, let go, let go, let go. And I'm like, girl, I am healed. Like, I have let go. Like, I literally couldn't give two craps about, what happened in the past. Like, I'm over it. And then I get this reading yesterday that's like, girl, you need to speak up. And why did I break down? A lot of times When we silence ourselves, you're silencing how you feel. You are suppressing your emotions, and then that will turn into God knows what. Like sometimes when we suppress our emotions, it turns into anxiety. It turns into depression. It turns into erratic behavior. It turns into impulsiveness because you don't even honor yourself because you're not honoring your truth. You're not honoring how you feel. And so you're looking for some sort of control somewhere else. You're lashing out in different ways. You will find peace and you will find healing when you acknowledge to yourself that what happened was wrong, that what happened hurt you. And sometimes expressing that to other people is just as healing. I recently came across this really beautiful quote that says, "Every time we tell the truth, we give birth to ourselves." And how beautiful is that? It's funny because I like to think of us as onions, right? We're like literal onions and we have layers to us, just like in Shrek. If you get the Shrek reference, you get it because I'm a Shrek girly. But you're like peeling back these layers of yourself. And every time you peel back a layer, it's because you've uncovered a truth about yourself. And ultimately, finding yourself is finding your truth and honoring that and using your God-given voice. That's a great way to do that, babe. That's a great way to do that. Remember this. Using your voice is one of the highest forms of self-love. Sharing your story is a declaration of self-love because you are honoring your truth. Therefore, you are honoring yourself. So if you're anything like me and it's a lot easier to speak up for other people than it is to speak up for yourself, let this be a lesson for you. You have to advocate for yourself and you have to share your story. And you can take time to heal before you share it. There's no perfect timeline. Thank you to whoever watched this whole thing. Thank you for holding space for me. I really appreciate it. And I really hope that you guys found this helpful. I hope you leave this video feeling empowered and inspired to share your own truths, your own lessons, your own revelations in whatever form makes sense to you. Maybe it's in a song, maybe it's in a podcast, maybe it's in a piece of art, whatever it is, but express yourself. And then you don't have to do it to a crowded room. You don't have to talk to people in your community. You can. That's a great way to do it. You can literally just release it by journaling right now. You can sit down and cry it out right now. You can scream it out. Go to a quiet field and scream and cry. Do what you need to do. Because on the other side of that, that's peace, babe. That's peace. That's peace. Okay. I'm actually done now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.